Here we go. So thank you everyone for being here today with us on our Immigration Justice Stalled webinar. We're really grateful to have everyone on. And if you wouldn't mind pressing *6 on your phone to mute yourself, I'm going to turn it over to Hannah Hafter, who's going to be our moderator for the webinar today. Hannah just recently moved to Cambridge to work with the UU College of Social Justice, where she organizes experiential learning programs. Before that, Hannah was based for many years in Tucson, Arizona, and she worked really closely with No More Deaths, a humanitarian aid and border justice group affiliated with the UU Congregation of Tucson. So thank you, Hannah. I'm going to hand it over to you now.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us here today to hear from Unitarian Universalists and our partner organizations around immigrant justice. Even though the implementation of the executive order for the deferred action has been stalled, which has left millions of our neighbors without status in the United States, the movement for migrant justice is as powerful as ever, and that's what we're here to explore today. So we'll be hearing from UUs and partners along the U.S.-Mexico border, starting in the California border with Tijuana, moving along to Arizona, and then out to Texas. We have a ton of great speakers lined up, so everyone will just have 4 to 5 minutes to share, and then they'll have some room for questions and answers. And I just want to pose a few questions to frame our discussion today. No one has to address all of them, especially in the short time, but just a way to think about how we approach the conversation. The first is, what is it that folks across the country should know about what is happening at the border now? The second is, what impacts have you seen because of this executive action being stalled? The third is, how can people across the country support your work? And last of all, if it's applicable, how does your faith help ground you in the important and challenging work that you do every day? So let's begin hearing from organizers and advocates in Tijuana. We'll start out with Hector Barajas and Yolanda Varona, who are with us together in Tijuana. Let's see, Hector serves as the he served in the U.S. military and was deported to Mexico, and he now helps run the Deported Veterans Support House. And Yolanda Varona is with the Tijuana chapter of the Dreamer Moms.
Okay, so we're ready? Okay. Well, myself, like I said, I served in the U.S. military. Right now we have veterans deported to 30 different countries, from the Vietnam War to current Iraq and Afghanistan. And people that served legally in the United States, and their green card was taken away due to a criminal conviction. And about the questions that you asked is, well, most people don't know that military veterans are being deported, and that when we die, I have a life duplication. When I die, I could be buried as an American, and we aren't given our benefits as well, which we have appointments in San Diego and California myself. And it's impacting our families, our children. Most of us suffer from PTSD and we need some type of treatment. And we would like people to know and raise awareness of our situation. And currently, we have the house where people can support as far as different type of trades or counselors or things of that sort. But we also we need help as far as donations and things like that. We are working to push immigration legislation, hopefully in the near future, and we're building a coalition with different groups in the United States to help push a bill that would return us back to the United States, and that would be hopefully HR 3761. I feel like we're being thrown on the back burner, and a lot of people talk about supporting the troops, but when we take off the uniform, they seem to forget about us. So that's about it for myself. Oh, and as far as my faith, that's sometimes the only thing that keeps us going is faith in also the American people. I think that like you guys make these changes. The United States has come a long ways as far as social justice, from women voting to slavery to all these different things. So I do believe in the United States and the people, but also my personal faith keeps me going and keeps me grounded sometimes, because sometimes that's the only thing I have sometimes to get day by day. So.
Hola, mi nombre es Yolanda Varona y pertenezco a un grupo de madres de ciudadanos de Estados Unidos y niños Dreamers. Ustedes ya saben quiénes son.
Mar.
Tenemos un grupo de mujeres y estamos tratando de buscar apoyo en congresistas, hacer una legislación que empujarla más bien, que existe desde hace un año y medio, es la HR 3431, que habla precisamente de personas como nosotros, tanto ciudadanos como madres, que llegamos a Estados Unidos y trabajamos en un servicio y queremos que gente como ustedes, que son en el poder de ayudar y de votar por la persona correcta para podernos apoyar a casa, tratando de realmente. Somos un grupo de madres que estamos alrededor de Estados Unidos en más de 20 estados. Ahora
tenemos que dejar la traducción. Tenemos que dejar tiempo para la traducción. Y después para... We're going to allow some time for the translation to occur before we get too far into Yolanda.
Mar.
Mark, you seem to be muted.
You know, Hector, would it be possible for you to translate while we can try to figure out? Thank you. Great.
Basically, Yolanda is part of a group of women that have citizen children or dreamers, and right now they're in 20 different states in the United States that are organizing, but also in different parts of the world, and they're asking for legislation, which is HR 3431. And they're asking for immigration reform for the reunification of families. They didn't commit any crimes. The only crime supposedly they committed is trying to make a better life for themselves and for their family. So I think they should be allowed to stay with their kids, and they think they should be with their, I think the United States is a country of family values, and we shouldn't separate families.
¿Algo más,
No.
All right. Well, we're going to move on then to Mar. Let's see. So Mar Cárdenas is the coordinator for the Centro GaryMar in Tijuana to help educate people on border trips. And she's also a member of the Chula Vista Unitarian Universalist congregation. Mar, can you share a bit with us about the work of GaryMar and what you've been seeing in Tijuana recently?
Oh, I think you might be muted.
If you can press *6 to unmute yourself, Mar. If your phone is muted, press *6. Do you want to give this a try? Okay.
I think we still can't. Yeah, we can't hear you, Mar.
Jen,
yeah. Oh, was that you, Mar, coming in? How about this, Hannah? Let's see if I can help Mar try to fix the tech issues. And why don't we move on to Katia and Susan Frederick-Gray in Arizona for now, and we can come back to Mar, and I will try to troubleshoot with her.
Well, thank you so much
Katia,
and to Yolanda for their presentation. And we're going to move on now to Katia, who is in Phoenix, Arizona. That is not where she is based. She is with UURISE in California, with UURISE in California, but she is in Phoenix for the March for an Ice-Free Arizona, or the Freeze. March. And so it is to mark the anniversary of the 5 years of resistance against SB 1070. We also have Susan Frederick-Gray, who is the pastor of the Phoenix congregation on the line, and she was also a key organizer of the Justice General Assembly in 2012. And so we are going to move forward where they can share a little bit both about the work that they do day in and day out and about their special event today in Phoenix.
Well, thank you. And I wanted to say thank you to Nora or whoever put up the picture of Susan and Reverend Beth Johnson, Susie Spangenberg, and Reverend Lori Brandeis and I in Washington, D.C. this summer for the Not One More Pray for Relief. So as Hannah said, my name is Katia Hansen, and I am the Director of Programs and Development for UURISE, Unitarian Universalist Refugee and Immigrant Services and Education. And we are a nonprofit organization based in Vista, California. We do direct practice services to immigrants, and then we do education outreach and community organizing actually on across the country, particularly with UU congregations. So one of the things that I was asked to talk about is kind of the impact that we're seeing with the executive actions being on hold. And probably the biggest impact that we're seeing right now is a lot of fear and a lot of misinformation in the immigrant community. We have been committed to doing at least one large information session every month, and then multiple small information sessions related to DACA and DAPA, the expanded DACA, and the executive actions that are currently on hold, making sure people know, what we don't know, and what they can do in the meantime, most specifically that they can continue to be preparing for the eventual implementation of DAPA and the expanded DACA, and also making sure that people are continuing to have positive communications with elected officials so that there is multiple levels of support going towards this. As Hannah said, I am currently in Arizona. I'm not where Susan Frederick-Gray is, but I will be there soon. I'm actually at Sandy Weir's apartment. Thank you, Sandy, for letting me log into your Wi-Fi here. And I'm here for the March recognizing 5 years of resistance to SB 1070. And I can't believe that it's been 5 years already, that it was 5 years ago that we were here marching for this, and then a few months later it was, being here in the days of defiance in opposition to SB 1070, and then of course being back in 2012. So we're excited to be here. We're proud to be a part of this work, and we're thrilled to do anything that we can to help any UU congregation, or it doesn't even have to be a UU congregation, but any UU ally congregation with their social justice ministries or anything like that, look at implementing immigrant justice work, whether that's visitation programs. We have helped people get there started and get them connected with Civic, which is an amazing organization who does that direct work, doing webinars and trainings related to this work, and probably most importantly, teaching people how to be involved in the movement in a way that's very positive by going in willing to partner with the organizations, the established grassroots organizations, and willing to lead, or pardon me, I just said that wrong, willing to follow their lead, willing to let the organizations who are doing this work already, and the people who are on the ground, and the people that these laws and policies are directly impacting, letting them lead and letting the UUs be the support to that. So I'll let Susan talk now.
Okay, can everyone hear me?
Yep.
I hope folks can. Great. So, yeah, I'm here actually in Chandler, Arizona at the Valley Unitarian Universalist congregation, and we're getting ready to head out to the Arizona Capitol for the March, 5 Years of Resistance, and asking for the ice freeze. Sorry if there's background noise. So we're currently having our Pacific Southwest District annual meeting here in Chandler. So we're going to have about 14 Unitarian Universalist ministers who are coming from the ministers' gathering down to the march to join with members of the UU Congregation of Phoenix to join as Standing on the Side of Love with Puente in this march and in the action at the jail and the rally at the Capitol. I think in the midst of stalled reform and the executive order being placed on hold, that momentum and movement building on the ground is really key. In some ways, when all the energy and attention transitioned to Washington, I think we saw a decrease, still organizing, but a hopeful feeling that change would happen and that the movement building had pushed enough that there would be change. And seeing the stalled executive action right now, as well as the failure of immigration reform, I think it comes back to the states and to immigrant communities, undocumented Americans, undocumented immigrants organizing and in partnership and with allies and people accompanying them in that journey, to build the momentum on the ground, to force the change to happen, to put more pressure on the legislators to support reform and relief. So this march is really about, in the midst of those failures on the national level, to call for an end to the deportations and an end to detention, the ice freeze, to stop separating families while we continue to wait for relief. So I'm thrilled to be having UUs join us, and perhaps Mar can now be able to speak, or if you have questions, I would take them.
Mar, I think you're still muted. We can't hear you. Oh, it's too bad, because I know we really want to. Mar is doing fantastic work in both San Diego and in Tijuana, working with the Deported Vets and Dreamers Moms and Border Angels there. So she's also helping to lead justice trips with the UU Justice Ministry of California. So Mar is really a wonderful resource, and I'm quite sad that we can't hear from her. But you know what, Mar, we can try again. So why don't do you want to try one more time, Mar, and see if, maybe not right now. Why don't we go ahead and move to Texas and hear from our partners at RAICES, and we could come back to Mar.
All right, so moving on to our partners at RAICES, Mayra and Michelle. They're based in San Antonio, and RAICES is one of very few organizations that is on the front line supporting women and children in immigration detention who are seeking asylum, the majority from Central America. And they'll be sharing with us about a movement of women inside the Karnes Detention Center who are on a hunger strike for release and improving conditions, and also about some opportunities to get involved this summer through the UU College of Social Justice. So I will be coordinating that effort this summer. And let's begin by hearing from Mayra and Michelle.
Great, thank you. I'm Michelle from RAICES. I will speak about Karnes, what's the current status of the hunger strike, and my colleague Mayra, who is the director of our children's program, who works directly with detained minors, will talk about the potential surge this summer and how you may also help with the unaccompanied minors. So just to begin, I wanted to talk a little bit about the hunger strike from the very beginning. So some of the complaints that were made that led up to the hunger strike were that the ladies didn't have access to good water. Where Karnes, Texas is located, there is a oil boom, and fracking plays a big part in the quality of water that they have in that area. The ladies complain about the taste of the water, the color of the water, and have reported that their kids have lost significant weight. I spoke to a lady a couple of days ago who said that their 4-year-old has lost 10 pounds during the 2 months that he had been in Karnes. So if you can imagine, for such a small little body, 10 pounds is quite significant. The ladies have also reported that they are able to work for $3 a day. However, the bottled water in the commissary costs $3. So for one day full of work, they can receive one bottle of water. They have also reported that they have asked the officers for water and they've been mocked, and then they proceed to speak in English. Of course, they don't know what they're saying. Also, unfortunately, the most recent report from my legal assistant, who speaks to the women daily on our hotline that we have, that all detainees can use to call us directly. More and more ladies are reporting that unfortunately their children have been making outcries to either hurt themselves or even kill themselves because they feel that that would be better than being detained. So all of these complaints and others have led to the decision of the ladies to decide to sign on to a petition and start a hunger strike. So the first hunger strike started March 30th and went to April 3rd. The ladies decided to do this in protest of their prolonged confinement and poor treatment. And they wouldn't stop until their voice was heard and the freedom was granted. They did very quickly respond to this hunger strike. ICE officers, 3 of the ladies have reported back to us that they were immediately, that same first day that the hunger strike had started, were placed into medical confinement, which is a small room, one room that they were placed there with their children, and that they all reported that it was a very dark, dimly lit room with a bed that is nailed, a metal bed that's nailed to the floor, and also one toilet. So they were placed, believe they placed them there at 3 p.m. the first day of the hunger strike. One lady was released 3 hours later. The other 2 were released the next day. So that was one full day in one room with their child, in which they didn't have any privacy whatsoever during that time. They also reported that after the beginning of the first hunger strike, that the officers, the GEO employees, let them know that if they continued to strike, that potentially their children would be taken away from them. GEO and ICE have continually denied that the hunger strike is actually occurring, and have said that they've been in constant communication with the ladies. And one part of that communication is letting them know that how their decision to stop eating could affect the quality of care that they can provide to their child, and that would be considered when deciding whether that they are a fit person to take care of their children. So the first hunger strike ended. The second hunger strike started April 14th, and it ended April 21st. Some common complaints that are still occurring is that every time there's a tour or media has a tour, they have reported that the detention center magically is clean, and that there's new food placed in the refrigerators in the commissary, that magically there's toys for their children that are in view, and they feel that it's really just a slap in the face, and how they're all quickly taken away from them after the tour is over. So I also wanted to talk a little bit about what you can do to help. So my job with the Carnes Pro Bono Project is to place the cases of these ladies who are in proceedings before an immigration judge with the pro bono or volunteer attorney as soon as possible. So there's many different ways that a volunteer could potentially help, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be an attorney. So we've placed non-attorneys on the ground and also remotely helping the project. One thing that they can do on the ground is intakes. We do intakes with every lady that calls our hotline, and we also have the ladies, volunteers prepare the ladies for their credible fear interview. This is when an asylum officer interviews a woman very quickly once they've arrived to the detention center to see if they have a credible fear of returning to their country. And if this interview is granted, then that's when they're placed in removal proceedings, and they could potentially request a bond retermination hearing. So our main goal at this point is assisting the women get out of detention as soon as possible. So that leads to the other part of our project, that volunteers are extremely helpful. We've had volunteers, non-attorneys and attorneys, prepare bond retermination packets. So it's just a packet of documents. We have tons of samples of how you can do this, and the non-attorneys, their work would be reviewed by an attorney, but it's very time-consuming. So volunteers can really help with that effort. In addition, we need attorneys to also, not all the women are eligible for a bond retermination hearing because they've been deemed an arriving alien or because they have prior immigration history. And so at that point, these ladies either need parole requests, which is another way that a volunteer can help prepare those requests. But in addition, we do need attorneys to take on a full case and a full representation before the immigration court. In addition to that, there's other opportunities. We do have a interfaith network here in San Antonio that has been extremely helpful. They actually have a coalition which leads a group of people to receive the women at our local bus station. And most of these ladies don't have clothes on them. They don't have any food or money. So what the volunteers have been doing is giving them food, fresh fruit, water, a backpack, potentially some clothes. When it was colder, they were giving them coats, because a lot of these ladies are relocating to states where the climate is very different and they didn't have the proper attire for that environment. In addition, we have volunteers that simply visit with the women weekly, and we find that that's really important to hear these women out. And those of you with social